Thank you for having us back. But today it'll just be me speaking. This family on screen is a favorite family of mine. Delia happens to, the mom Delia happens to be my successor at Focus on the Family, where I spent a good, large majority of my career life. And actually that's happened more than 23 years ago, where we were going to plant a church, and I just wanted to a job because we said that both of us can't plant a church from scratch without anyone earning income. So when it was a toss-up as to who should go out and work, I quickly said yes. Okay, so if you know both of us from last week and got a little sense of the kind of personalities we are, I'm really not a pastor. So I have worked as a pastor. I'm officially titled a pastor, but please, if you see me, just call me Jo, okay? Yeah, so anyway, I decided to work, and I don't know if any of you know the late Joseph Chen from YWAM. Yeah, he was actually the one that connected me to Focus on the Family, and I thought, like, okay, just give it 2 years, and my 2 years became 20 years. And so 2 years ago, I handed it off to Delia. As you can tell, she's a young mom. And I'm really, really pleased with what she is doing. Okay, to jump right in, as we were worshiping, I thought I should share with you what happened to me a few months ago. We were in Japan to do one of my favorite things in life, and that is skiing. And on this particular night, I woke up in the middle of the night, and for some strange reason, I'm a really good sleeper, okay, as in I can sleep anywhere. In fact, when I was a teenager, I fell asleep on my bike cycling home after a long day of training. So that's how good a sleeper I am, right? And so, in the middle of the night, on one of the nights we were there, I woke up, and then for some reason, I decided to open my eyes. And then suddenly it occurred to me that I could not see anything. Like it was just pitch black. Then I thought, cannot be lah. I know we drew the curtains and all that. What's going on? So I thought, like, okay, maybe I was just dreaming, right? So I'll try it again. So I closed my eyes, right? And said, okay. Stay calm, nothing's happening, and I opened my eyes again, and it was still pitch black. I really could not see anything. Then I was thinking, like, okay, can I, because I have short-sightedness and a little bit of long-sightedness. At a healing rally that my church had last year, I got healed of long-sightedness, but I still have short-sightedness, and of course, I realized that long-sightedness is also a aging disease, so if you don't take care of it, it will come back, right? Okay, so I thought, like, oh no, has it set in, my long-sightedness, short-sightedness, now I got no sightedness, what is it, right? So I put my hand right up, in front of my face. I could not see anything. So I turned to my side, and I was thinking, like, somewhere around the room, there must be some light or some, speck or dot, like my phone, for example, and my phone had no light, right? Then I thought maybe, like, the TV, sometimes the light switch, you have this little dot of light, right? I should be able to see, even though it's very far away, and I'm short-sightedness, but I should be able to see something, and I couldn't. Then I started to panic. Then I realized that, wait, hold on, I'm a believer, God. Right, you are a miracle worker, promise keeper. So I decided to pray. So I closed my eyes and I said, God, then I started like intercession, spiritual warfare, whatever you have. And I said, okay, I'm going to open my eyes and I'm going to believe that whatever has happened, I'm healed and I can see. And I opened my eyes and I couldn't see. Then I thought to myself, should I wake Gary up? Right? I mean, he's lying next to me. Should I tell him that I think I've gone blind? Right? And then I thought to myself, no, this can't be it. This is like just does not make sense. So I decided to try a few rounds, right, of just exercising my faith and the power of prayer. And so I did that, and then nothing worked. So in the end, last resort, I decided I had to tell Gary that I think something has happened. And so I tapped him, Gary, I think I've gone blind. And my husband woke up. Like, what happened? And then he reached for his phone, and then he turned on the light on his phone. And then I realized I could see. The hotel was having a power shutdown. And actually, they had notified us, but of course I forgot all about it. But I had never, ever in my life experienced such pitch blackness before, right? I mean, even in a shutdown, but we're up in the mountains, right? So even if you draw the curtains, there's always usually like a slit or something where you can see some light, right? But this was not Singapore. This was up there where at night it's just dark, right? And because I'm short-sighted, there's no way I can see the stars from afar. I mean, I'm sure you could if you went to the window and all. Yeah, you cannot imagine anyway what a huge relief that was to me that I had not got blind, right? Because, running across my mind was like, oh no, how will life change? What will happen? Well, between losing my sight and losing my hearing and losing mobility, which is worse, all these things go through your mind, right? Okay, the reason I share this is we're talking about the state of family today, and I think in the course of working in this whole arena of family, there have been really, really times when it has felt really dark. And I do think that we believers who are called to be salt of the earth, light of the world, if we don't turn on our light, it will be pitch black. Okay, so today, whether or not we still have immediate family, extended family, close to them, not close to them, okay, hopefully we covered some things as to how we can really sow into these family relationships last week. But the call today is we need all as believers to understand the state of family, the state of affairs when it comes to the institution of family, when it comes to God's original design. Because there is a mandate and something He wants us all to do. If Gary had not turned on his phone light, I would have still thought I was blind. And he joining me in blindness, right? But thankfully, he had his senses and wits about him to turn on that light. And we are the lights that God requires to be turned on. Last week, we talked a little bit about God's original divine design. Do you all remember the 3 numbers? Can you shout out 1, 2, 3? What's the first number? 2, 1, 3. Very good, right? 2 sexes, 1 coming together as one in marriage, and 3 or more to go forth and multiply. The Bible tells us very clearly that if we follow or obey His design, what will happen? We have blessings. But on the other hand, if we don't, there are curses or consequences that we would have to suffer. And it's really clear. I mean, the Bible is typically clear, right? Obey me, blessings. Don't obey me, So choose life or death. But the Bible God is a God of love. So He gives us many hints. Choose life or death, but choose life better. Yeah, same thing here, right? Choose my divine design or choose to deviate from it. But divine design is really better. And society actually shows exactly what God has said. Because when we look at actual numbers and actual statistics, it tells us that when we choose to follow God's design, there are truly benefits. Benefits as measurable as, where families are strong and intact in societies or in a certain district, they found that crime rate is actually reduced. It is a safer place for children, for everybody, right? Where there are more people who are married, actually, income levels go up. Why? Possibly because maybe married people, they have a sense of responsibility, and so maybe they steward their finances really well or better because now they cannot just spend on themselves and only themselves as and when they please. Maybe it makes them better investors. But I also believe that it's God's blessing, right? Because it's God's divine design. However, when you see families starting to break down, we see the cost on society, which includes monetary costs. I was quite alarmed when actually I looked at that, the cost of family breakdown in Singapore. 4.7 is billions, it's not million. Okay, but of course, many of these are indirect costs. costs that we often don't see or don't peg to family, which includes like if, let's say there is a person, a staff or colleague at your workplace who is undergoing divorce, actually that costs the company. There's one study that calculated that it leads to 21 lost days of work. Okay, whether it's because, the person is just not in the right state of mind, struggling many other things, much less work, or needing to go and attend to whatever legal meetings or things that, require him or her to do with regards to divorce proceedings, but it does cost. So what has gone wrong? Let's take a look at 213, in the area of two sexes. I think it's quite obvious from the picture, right? We showed you this last week. What happens when the dots don't line up? Well, when the dots don't line up, when there's no recognition of the complementarity of the sexes, right? When we don't treat sex as really binary, that means it's either male or female, but a whole spectrum, and you can be anything you choose in between. It starts to actually upset the world and the system and order, right? From whether it be toilets, okay, because now everybody who is of a different gender wants their own toilet. Whether it be in social discourse, people get cancelled, right, or intimidated if you were even to say one man, one woman, right? Many things get upset, and the result actually is beginning to be seen in our current generation of young people. Whether or not it's because they are being more confused about their gender, or maybe they don't treat it as confusion, they just identify as some other gender other than what they were naturally, biologically born as. Actually, this should be no surprise to us because this happened long ago. If I just take Time magazine cover, way back in 1997, right? That was when the L and the G started. They started pushing all about sexual orientation. And then gender orientation. They said that, it's not just L and G, the lesbian or the gays, right? And the fact that they would purport that they are born this way, but then there's also the B. Sometimes I am homosexual, but sometimes I'm heterosexual, right? So I'm bisexual. Or the T's. Today, there are all these other alphabets that follow after because essentially, it's led to what is called identity politics. We might think that this is out there in the world or in some strange place like America, but actually, this is Singapore. And these are more recent news reports in Singapore. In fact, the one that says, no sex, no problem. What it means to be asexual in Singapore. There's an asexual community now that they're trying to, highlight in Singapore. This was in the news just a few weeks ago, May 25th. Okay, right on our homeland. Just to make clear why there's a BBC News article, because the BBC News article, when they talked about 377A, it said, making it legal to be, removing the ban, right, on gay sex, but it says effectively making it legal to be homosexual. Okay, this is how it works when we start to deviate from God's design. If I were to ask this question, was it ever, even when 377A was around, was it ever illegal to be homosexual? Or illegal to be bisexual or whatever sexual you want to be? Was it ever illegal? Never. Laws don't dictate who a person is. It determines behavior. It assesses whether behavior is good for society, for public good, beneficial, or whether it bears a cost and therefore needs to be regulated against. It's the behavior, it's not about the person. But in identity politics, we've made sex all about the person. A few years ago, there was this choir, that part of their performance was a song that they had composed. And part of the song says, "We're coming for your children." The founder of Focus on Family, Dr. James Dobson, said this: those who control what young people are taught, what they experience, what they see, basically what they absorb in life, what they consume. If you can control young people in that way, you're controlling their minds, you're controlling their hearts. you're actually determining the future course for the whole nation. Is it too lofty a statement, ridiculous a statement to make? Well, if you really look at statistics today, this is local Ipsos research. Yeah, you will notice that more people today would identify themselves as LGBT+. And a large proportion of people who identify themselves as such are actually from the younger generation. So you see in the middle, right, from 5%, if you're in the boomer generation, maybe only 5% would identify themselves as LGBT+. But if you are belonging to Gen Z, it's 17%. I mean, if you think about it and there's no more stigma and all that, then, relatively should be equal across the generations, right, these incidents. But why is it that the younger the person is, the higher chance they are LGBT+? Perhaps because they have come for our children. They have really groomed our children to think that there is no original design, much less divine design. In the area of marriage, local news, more Singaporean women may skip marriage. Skip marriage? Well, many women today in Singapore, we are working women. We have a career, we have resources, we have means, we have options. We don't need to rely on a man to take care of us, right? And so with these options, it means that, I can find fulfillment elsewhere. Why do I need a man? I know the Bible says, Proverbs 18:22, he who finds a wife finds a good thing and receives favor from the Lord. Yeah, I was talking to a group of a bit more career-minded women once, and they said, yeah, but this one is talking about the man. But women different. I mean, women to find a good man is really, really a miracle. Right? And they were saying this half in jest, but half in reality, because they were bemoaning the fact that in church, oftentimes there's actually a disproportionate amount of women, more women than men, isn't it? So they said, the good man taken already, what? What's left? So is it any wonder, actually, because if you look at the state of marriages, and we showed you some of these stats last week, these stats are from Focus on the Family. Even the ones who are married, right, they are not doing very, very well, whether it be the wives or the husbands. As a result, if marriages aren't doing very well, it's not going to encourage other people to look at marriage and say, oh, that's something I want. Right? In fact, it'll be like, oh my gosh, you keep complaining about your spouse. I think better don't get married. So, fewer marriages in Singapore. Of course, part of it is because of our population. It is decreasing, right? And one area is divorce. And in Singapore, we have this divorce by mutual agreement, right? Intended actually with all good intentions, that we want to make, divorce less acrimonious, so that the parties involved, and especially the children, won't be affected. Okay, let me just say this, okay? Children will be affected by divorce, whether or not acrimonious, not acrimonious. Yeah. Of course, this law wasn't meant to make divorce easier, and the government has said that many, many, many times. Okay, but you can see for yourself, yeah, the rate of divorce is going up, as well as in Singapore with this thing called annulments. It's going up too. In fact, you might be kind of surprised to know that in Singapore, you can have divorce by mutual agreement so long as you fulfill what they call the criteria for divorce. The criteria for divorce, as Christians, we know that, sometimes it cannot be helped if you have a spouse that is unrepentant, either in adultery, abuse, what I call the 3 A's, adultery, abuse, or abandonment. Like basically abandon you and cannot rule back. Right? And in certain such cases, for the welfare, the safety of both the spouse as well as children or larger family, it may be a necessity to be divorced. But other than that, try to work it out, right? That would be our so-called Christian stand. Well, one of the criteria of divorce in Singapore is this: irreconcilable differences. What does that mean? It means that if I can show that, Gary and me, we always argue. Actually, in our first year, that happened every single day. Okay, that would have been a grounds for divorce. And even if Gary were to contest it, actually today got divorced by mutual agreement to make it less acrimonious. So rather than helping me to tell me that, no, there's no back door, you go work out your differences. It's like, yeah, okay, your irreconcilable differences. Okay, check. Sometimes as Christians, our compassion, right, or what we think is love can kind of mislead us. In Matthew 19, when Jesus talked about divorce, Jesus said it was permitted. Moses permitted you to divorce your wives because your hearts were hard, unrepentant. But it was not this way from the beginning. This was never God's original design, which we talked about 2:1-3. In God's original design, in fact, sex, the two, including the act of sex, and marriage were supposed to go together because one man, one woman, right? They come together as one. Yet, to quote the Heritage Foundation, they said this: marriage is based on the truth that men and women are complementary. The biological fact that reproduction depends on a man and a woman. And the reality that children need a father and a mother. Redefining marriage does not simply expand the existing understanding of marriage. It actually rejects these truths. It rejects divine design. Is marriage and family a personal affair? Is sex a personal affair? Yes, it is. A personal, private affair. You shouldn't go around and tell people what happens in your bedroom. But it is also a public issue. Why? Because we saw anything about family has larger public consequences or public good, costs and benefits that affect the whole of a nation. Last one, divine design. Okay, you see the charts. I know it's very small, but basically it's to just show you the pattern. These are global birth rates all across the world. You can see, right? Going down. Singapore also. Singapore's current fertility rate is 0.97. That is below replacement rate, in case you're not sure how to read it. 10 years ago, I had the privilege of working with the National Population and Talent Division in the Prime Minister's office. Right? They called us in and called Focus on the Family in, and they shared with us their situation. This was 10 years ago. They said, okay, we've been looking, because they're NPTD, we've been looking at population stats, and we know that this is our very, very, very last window to tackle the fertility issue. And so, there were campaigns that started. I don't know if you've seen some of them. It didn't last very long. There wasn't enough drive behind it. Yeah, but they wanted to do a campaign called Hello Love that, basically encourage people to mingle, mix, and hopefully get married, right? And another one that promoted Singapore as a place made for families. I think you might have seen the Made for Families brand in certain places, but again, didn't make it very big. Eventually, we were caught up as a society with downstream problems. Why? Because so many families broken, I have to attend to each and every one of them. This fertility issue, yeah, we know, but it's kind of out there, somewhere in the future. And so today you don't hear of any of these campaigns. The window has passed. That was 10 years ago. That's why our fertility rate is at 0.97. If you ask Singaporeans, why is it you don't want to have children? Why would you prefer to have dogs and pets? Of course, they are better and maybe easier, more compliant to raise, yeah? But the big reason on these charts, I don't know if you can see, or it's too small, basically money. Why? So we had a couple of focus group discussions with some parents, why do you think it's so costly to raise children? You know how expensive it is to send them to the top-notch childcare? enrichment class so that they get a head start in life. Singaporeans. I think it's actually Asian, because we were once in San Francisco and then we drove past this place and there was a huge crowd, at this particular building. And then we were like, what is there? Why is there? How come got a crowd? Then we realized, and now they're all Asians. It was an enrichment center. I don't know. Yeah, Asian thing. So, today, right, we unfortunately, repealed the law that said that sex, between two men is illegal. What has happened? Of course, we had a constitutional amendment that kind of highlighted that marriage is one man, one woman. But this is taken out of a commentary written on it shortly after that talked about how, with the removal of this symbolic marker, yes, the law is not a foolproof thing, but with the removal of it as a symbolic marker, it said this: the traditional institution of marriage and family will be jeopardized. Future generations will fail to embrace a position because there's no guidance on it, right? Being persecuted because of conservative beliefs and possibly waning of religious liberties to propagate religious beliefs related to homosexuality. Currently, they're trying to push for a law against hate crimes. And they are saying that it's okay for pastors, you'll get some exemption. You can preach about it. Okay, but this is very gray area. If I stand up here and I talk about this is what the Bible says about homosexuality, okay, preaching. If I do it in a cell group, is it counted or not? Do I get exempted? If I'm talking to somebody or ministering to somebody one-on-one, we happen to be sitting in a coffee shop, is that counted? What if I'm not a pastor? Right? Or maybe I am a pastor, but I also have a full-time job outside. Perhaps as a counselor. And as a counselor, I try to help a person who's having same-sex attraction, and doesn't want it, right? And I try to help this counselor as a counselor, I try to help this client, right, to address their same-sex attractions and not get rid of it, but how to overcome it, how to manage it, how to deal with it, how to, find their identity. Maybe not necessarily a Christian client, but how to, find their original design. Would that be considered a hate crime? Right, so it's going to open the door to many, many things. In case we think that it's still out there in the West, it's here on our shores. Should we be concerned? Well, yes, if we are really, really serious about what 国家 means. The Chinese word, right, 国家, nation. It's interesting that the Chinese word for country or nation has the word family in it, 家. Because if really we see society as being built on family as the basic unit of society, of a nation, then if you don't have 家, you don't have 国 lah, right? But at the same time also, if you don't have nation, you don't have family lah, if you don't have a good nation. They are symbiotically related. And so, as the popes would say, as the family goes, so goes the nation, and so goes the whole world in which we live. Can we do something about it? Yes, we can. In Jeremiah, this verse in Jeremiah says to stand at the crossroads and look and ask for the ancient paths. Ask where the good way is and walk in it, and you'll find rest for your souls. If we ask this of family, of the issue of family, of all those things that we just saw in the video, right? God, what are we to do? Ancient paths. What are the ancient paths? Go back to 2:1:3, God's original design. God's original design. We need to sow into God's original design. We need to speak God's original design. And we need to stand for God's original design. How do we do that? Well, some practical areas. Again, from Focus on the Family statistics. These are statistics of a church. Do you see the contradiction? 92%, for example, believe extramarital sex is unacceptable. But 26% actually engage in extramarital sex. Right? Or the top one, where it says 89% says not acceptable to have sex before marriage. Even though you're going to maybe even get married, just, you're already committed, already engaged. But 89% still quite good. I mean, maybe you already see, only 89%. Okay, but 89% is still quite good. But what is more stark is that while 89% believe that way, 35% will go and sleep with their boyfriend, girlfriend, right? Knowing that there'll be sexual temptations. It's not uncommon these days, right, to see Christian couples going overseas for holiday alone. Just the two of them. Not because it's group, Where do you think they stay? Oh, we're going to share a room because cheaper lah. We're on a budget. What do you think will happen? Nothing lah. Nothing? Seriously? Okay, so, ask ourselves some of these real honest questions, right? And then we know that, are we being hypocritical as a church? We talked about how to live out strong families last week. And so to remind us, especially in this area of sexuality, if you're married, right, work on your sexual intimacy and sexual integrity. Keep your marriage intact because the marriage bed should be kept pure. If you're not married, then apply sexual abstinence, purity. For all of us, apply some wisdom. Right? Wisdom to decide, is it a good idea to really go on a holiday with my boyfriend or girlfriend alone and stay in the same hotel room to save money? Really? Is that wisdom? The Bible never say anything specifically, I cannot do that. What? Yeah, it didn't lah, but use some brains lah. Right? Bible also made you with the ability to be attracted. That's why you are girlfriend, boyfriend. Parents, let's teach sexuality. For the longest time when Age Time Focus did their statistics, they found that a good 85% of young people generally expect to get information and sex education, not from school, not from MOE, but from parents. But a good 85% of them, actually, the parents don't talk to them. Okay? Now, these are all free resources that I put up here. Okay? Got QR code, everything. Yeah? Go find them. Even if you're a grandparent, but you have a grandchild who is primary school age or, in the tweens, the parents too busy to do anything, you do lah. Yeah, this video series is really plug and play. They got that after that discussion question. And it's so easy. It only takes 10 minutes. 10 minutes. Because we figured that if we need you to just get started, 10 minutes. Okay, and they just created this one based on, I don't know if you recognize this movie poster, but it's on Netflix, Adolescence. Right, so they created a talking point around that. FAQs on sexuality. All these are free resources. Free, okay? So don't say don't have, not available. How to equip, I don't know how. Go lah, they're here. Tell you how. Okay? Sow into your family. Why? Because it's one thing to know all these things up in the head. One thing to talk about all the problems, but if we don't do anything about it, we would still be in darkness. The world will still be in darkness. If Gary never turned on his phone torchlight, I would be blind still, right? I would think I'm blind at least. Yes, let's do something about it. Married couples, if you never sign up for Alpha Marriage yet, okay, I'm here only second week, but I can see the church is plugging. Shame on you. Okay, but if you're really so embarrassed, right, cannot be in the same place with other couples, much less church leaders who might start scrutinizing your marriage. Okay, Focus got this kit. How you can go on a date and make intentional, meaningful connections on a date. Okay, go secretly, buy it. Okay, then nobody will know. Or they have a podcast. This is a podcast that Gary and I helped them to start. I think this is in the second or third year already. Right? And you see that some of the topics are on intimacy, sex and intimacy. I was very surprised because recently I just went in to help them to record another podcast and they told me, Joe, you know what? You know what's the highest listenership or not for our podcast? You know which episode or not? And I said, we try. And I said, I was thinking which recent one did I help them with? And I said, actually, the ones that you and Gary did in the beginning, when we first started 2 years ago, on intimacy and sex. We don't want people to know. Never mind, this one, listen on your own. Spotify, put your earphones. Nobody will know. But at least you will be equipped, resourced, encouraged. Second thing, speak. We need to speak. Just before, the actual repeal of 377A, Focus did this one question, one question survey, and the one question is what you see on screen. What would be your top parenting concern? One question only. I mean, you can see the top concerns lah. It will not be surprising. Probably your top concerns too. Okay, but what was surprising is that within 48 hours, we had more than 24,000 responses. Total responses were 26,000. Okay, what's even more interesting is that almost half of them came from what we call trolls. Okay, so that's where you get the invalid responses. Yeah, where either they put there no concern. What's there to be concerned about? Or like some hostile comment even, right? But trolls. I think the other side knows the power of speaking up more than sometimes we do. We know that values are eroding. Right? Younger people are essentially more liberal when it comes to some of these values that you see on screen. I like what Elon Musk posted a couple of years back, right? And he actually, this is not his own diagram. He took it from somebody else. Okay, but he basically said, as Elon Musk, he said, I consider myself leftist. Okay, so that's the first picture in 2008. Right? In 2008, I would have been considered also by other people as being on the left when it comes to values. Right? In 2012, because the left kind of went further left. Now, although I never changed my stand, but I almost like center already. In 2021, he said, I also still haven't changed. I haven't moved where I stood. But the left has gone so far left that today I will actually be considered right. Is it because he became more conservative? No. It's because it has become even more like deviant from God's original design. But can you imagine if nobody, especially no one from the church, stood our ground on God's original design? If we also shift, or you're shifting that side, okay, we also shift. Right? Basically, there's no more right. Right becomes center already. This is the importance of standing. What are we standing for? Well, we're standing for quite a number of things. We can stand as individuals in wherever we are placed. This is MOE School Sex Ed. At the moment, MOE School Sex Ed is conservative. It follows God's original design at the moment. I say at the moment is because we've been involved in some groups where, parents had detected that some material was going in. And I can tell you this, there are gatekeepers, there are people in government and MOE who are also trying to make sure that we try to stick and stand on God's original design. But they need our voice, the speaking part, so that they can continue to stand firmly that this is original design, that this is the good way. It's not ancient as in outdated, but it's ancient as in timeless, tested, tried, proven. The good way. Whether you're a parent, whether you're an educator, if you're an educator, go teach sex ed so that you can make sure that the right values are being taught. If you're a parent, make sure you know when you sign the form, right, what you're signing. You have been given permission by MOE to make noise. If you start seeing the standards, the values shifting. Stand for values, biblical values. Stand against the culture that is deteriorating. The culture that begins to call what is good bad and what is bad good. Stand against that. Because if we don't stand, we will all become leftists actually one of these days. The reason why I put up those two guys, during the debate over the repeal of 377A, there were two guys who spoke about it, knowing that it's useless. By the time we already knew, surely will happen one. Right? And I had the privilege of meeting one of them, and I said, why do you even bother to do that? They're both believers. Yeah. Why do you even bother to do that? Because, not everybody will know you're a believer, right? And everybody will know you're conservative. And so if they want to ever bash or, persecute anybody, it'll be you lah. But why did you do that? And they said, because by our conviction, that is God's original design. Those are values that regardless must never be moved. So even though we are powerless and we cannot affect the final outcome, but somebody has to make a stand. We all called to make a stand in different ways. If you're not called to parliament, maybe you don't have this kind of Esther moments, but you can make a stand even in prayer. Yeah, I remember that one of the things that we tried to do was to gather the church, whoever is concerned about that issue, to come together and pray. And strangely, that was a day when the sky at 4 p.m. grew very, very dark for no rhyme, no reason. And I remember all of us in office, we thought something had happened, like it was almost like Armageddon, right? As you see in the movies. And so we all went out and went and looked at the window, like, how come? Yeah, it was spiritually, I believe, a dark day. We leave the outcome to the Lord. But regardless, as it says in Ezekiel 22:30, God is looking for people, a man, a woman, young man, old man, young woman, old woman, whatever, somebody to stand in the gap on behalf of our land. There's a song by Newsboys called Stand. And the song goes like this: who will I be when trouble comes calling for me? Will I live the way I believe when I'm backed up against the wall? If people are persecuting you for your beliefs, for being conservative in your values, will you continue to still stand? There's a quote, right, that says, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. Will you stand in a world that's breaking? Stand for a truth unchanging. I'm not ashamed, I've considered the cost. I'll stand right here at the foot of the cross and stand. Why? Because I stand up for the one who gave his everything. Will you stand for what matters to God? For God's original, divine, good design, for his wonderful intent when it comes to sex, two sexes, becoming one in marriage, and for family going forth to multiply. Why would we stand? We stand because it is God's design, it's good, and we are beginning to deviate from it. And God is looking for people to stand, to speak his truth, and to continue to sow, that we don't just like say only lah, but we show it in our lives, we live it out in our values. So, speak, stand. Which would you do? Actually, it's not a choice. We have to do all three. So my question is more this. Today, which do you need to do more of? Right? Maybe you're like, oh, no, God never made me to speak. I'm like Aaron, or Moses, supposed to go in front of Pharaoh. Cannot lah. What to say? It's the Holy Spirit that speaks through you. But God is looking for somebody, a vessel, who makes himself or herself available. Right? Like I said, no excuse to not sow, because I give you so many free resources. If you don't want to pay for your church alpha, right? Some of these resources are free. But you need to intentionally sow. All of us hold a key. In 2013, there was another round of when actually this 377A was again being reviewed. And remember, at that point of time, I had decided in agreement with Gary that this was our last chance to have a second child. I think you saw our family photo. You only got one. Still one. So anyway, because of my biological age, I said, okay, this is the last window. It's like with the fertility issue. Last window to do something. So I decided that, one of the common reasons that they give as to why you're facing infertility is stress. Then I'm thinking like, my job very stressful. So I decided to quit resign. So I actually stepped down from Focus on the Family for a year. Actually, I intended it to be until I have a second kid, right? But in the middle of this sabbatical, okay, the board termed it sabbatical because they refused to have me resign, but I termed it as resignation. But in any case, when I was in the middle of this, I got called one day from actually Jason Wong, who I think some of you have heard of, founder of Yellow Ribbon, That's for Life, and then he became the chairman of Focus on the Family. But he called me one day and he said this: Hey, do you know that the government's reviewing this? Yeah, I know. What's Focus on the Family going to do about it? I don't know because I'm no longer there. What do you call, the one I handed over to? At that time, not Delia. Yeah. What do you call him and ask him? I did. He said he's not doing anything. I said, oh, okay, Lord, then. Cannot be helped, Lord. And then before he allowed me to put down the phone, he said this. What will you do about it? Wow, this kind. But, fearing God, I decided that, okay, God, I better ask. God, do you need me to do anything about it? Because I'm trying to contribute in this way, in my own personal way, by having another child to go forth and multiply, right? It's not like I'm anti-God's design or anything like that. And God said this to me, you hold a key. For all the work, by that time I was in Focus for already 10 years. For all the work and experience and whatever that I had been through at Focus, I had been trained to do things that I knew other people cannot do. I had inroads, I had connections to certain people that I knew it takes time to build, but I held a key. The key in this particular instance. And the challenge from God is, what will you do with it? I'm telling all of you today, you hold the key to some arena of society where family is being affected, where you can be a gatekeeper. Gatekeeper is actually where I work now. And gatekeeper essentially is to gatekeep society, to make sure the bad stays out, the good comes in. To promote values, of which one is family. We all hold a key. You might say that, I'm in the banking industry. What's it got to do with family? Well, the banking industry is the one that funds all these LGBT things, quite heftily, actually. Yeah, in fact, they used to fund Pink Dot until, we tried to say that, so now got this law against foreign interference in such things. But it cuts both ways, because it also means when we want to have foreign speaker come in and speak to us, also foreign interference. Okay, but we all hold a key. You might say that, I don't even go out there and work in society. I'm a homemaker. You hold the biggest key. Right? Because, nobody gets to eat. Unless you determine that you're going to prepare the meal. Right? You can set the tone at home. You can frame what happens at the dining table and the kind of conversations that you have. We all have been given a key. Because in Matthew 16 it says that Jesus, have given you the keys to the kingdom. Whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven. Whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. We have a key to lock, to unlock. We have a key to guard the gate of family. We have the key to make sure that God's divine design continues to stand. And, it's not just, this one is only for people like me who work at Focus on Family. I don't work at Focus on the Family anymore. In fact, now I work at Gatekeepers. And all the more, it has become quite glaring to me that, I go to a new organization, but still I hold a key. And when it comes to the issue of family, it affects the whole of society. Because it will affect your children, your grandchildren, your children's children. We sang the blessing song last week. Yeah, it will affect life as you know it. Would you today commit to do all three? To sow, to speak when it's needed, and to always stand on the side of God, on the side of His truth, on the side of design. If that's you, can I invite you to stand? And can I invite the worship team to also come up? Don't stand because embarrassed, okay? Stand because today, as maybe a collective church or body of Christ, you recognize, the information I kind of showed you or brought you through, that's just information if it doesn't bother us. But if it bothers you, which actually it should, then you need to ask yourself, God, what are you requiring of me? What are you requiring of me? Okay, I'm going to get the worship team to just lead us in this song. But as we do that, would you just commit yourselves to the Lord, knowing that He has given you at least one key. Some of you have, many, many keys lah. But you have at least one key that can be used to safeguard God's divine design for two sexes, His divine design for marriage, His divine design for family. What will you do with it?